people, you could lose your rewards pretty fast. That was Manny's story, as I was given to understand it, a tragic fall from a certain government's grace. Manny had arrived in Manila from Johannesburg that evening. A black Mercedes from the small Peninsula fleet had picked him up at Ninoy Aquino Airport and whisked him straight to the hotel. Docs and I were already staying there, outfitted with first-rate ersatz identities and the latest communication and other gear, all courtesy of Israeli intelligence, my client of the moment. Docs, a former Marine sniper and one-time comrade in arms of mine, had recently walked away from a $5 million payday to save my life in Hong Kong. Bringing him in on this job was in part my way of trying to repay him. Docs was waiting in the lobby when Manny arrived. I was in my room on the 6th floor, a tiny, flesh-colored, Danish-designed wireless earpiece nestled in my ear canal, a wireless mic secured to the underside of the left lapel of the navy blazer I was wearing. Docs was similarly equipped. "Okay, partner," I heard him say softly in his southern twang. "Our friend just got here, him and the world's biggest but ugliest bodyguard. They're checking in right now." I nodded. It had been a while since I'd worked with a partner, and not so long ago Docs had proven himself a damn good one. "Good. Let's see if you can get the name he's using and a room number." "Roger that." Having to get this information on our own wasn't ideal, but the Philippines wasn't exactly the Israelis' backyard, and they hadn't been able to offer much. Manny traveled to Manila frequently from his nominal home in Johannesburg, taking as many as 10 trips a year. He never stayed less than a week. The longest of these visits had lasted 2 months. He'd been doing this for a decade, presumably because customs control in Manila isn't as tight as it is in, say, Singapore, which made the Philippines a good place for meetings with the MNLF, Abu Sayyaf, Jamaah Islamiyah, and other violent groups in the region. And perhaps Manny was attracted to the price and variety of Manila's well-known nightlife as well, or at least that was the speculation. He always stayed at the peninsula. There were a few surveillance photos. That was all. With less than the usual dossier to go on, I knew we would have to improvise. Where to hit Manny, for one thing. The hotel was our only current nexus and so presented a logical choice. But if Manny died in the hotel, it would absolutely have to look natural. Otherwise, there would be too much investigative attention on the other guests, including Docs and me. Staying elsewhere wouldn't have helped. It would have kept us too far from the action. The level of naturalness a hotel hit itself would require isn't easy, but there were other problems as well. Most of the ruses I typically use to get into someone's room depend on the target's anonymity, yet Manny was well known to the hotel. And even if I did get into the room while Manny was out, and then waited for him to return, what if the bodyguard swept the room immediately before his arrival? What if Manny came back with a bar girl? In the current terrain, I couldn't control for these variables, and I didn't like that. Still, I wanted the room number, partly in case a better opportunity didn't present itself and we had to use the hotel room expiration scenario as Plan B. More important, so we would know on which floor to place the video camera we would use to track his movements. We could have tried placing a camera in the lobby, which would have been easier because it would have saved us the trouble of finding out what floor he was on. But there were downsides to the lobby, too. With all the people coming and going through the hotel entrance, we'd have to scrutinize the grainy feed constantly to pick Manny out of the crowd. And if the lobby was always our first chance to see him on the move, we'd have to scramble to follow him out of the hotel, behavior any decent bodyguard would key on in a heartbeat. So I decided we would use the lobby only if we had to. Of course, even low-end hotels don't give out their guests' room numbers, though, and the regal Peninsula Manila, with its expansive marble-lined lobby and white uniformed bellhops, was anything but low-end. And even if we found an indiscreet employee, we wouldn't have known who to ask for because we didn't know what name Manny would be staying under. So, while leaning forward to ask some typical questions about Manila and environs, Docs had taken the liberty of placing a few adhesive-back transmitters under the long front edge of the marble reception desk. When Manny checked in, Docs would be able to listen in on his conversation with the clerk. After 2 minutes, I heard the twang again. "Well, it's good news and bad news. Our friend is here under..."